He never mentioned his father, not once. In every speech, in every interview, in every rare moment when the world begged for something personal, Captain Ibrahim Traoré spoke of duty, of the homeland, of the people, of Sankara, but never of the man who raised him. For years, this silence was interpreted in many ways. Some said his father had died young. Others assumed he was absent or a shadow from a complicated past. But the truth was far more powerful and far more painful. The man who raised Ibrahim Traoré was not a man of speeches. He was not a soldier. He was not even literate. His name was Moussa Traoré, a farmer from the dry lands of northern Burkina Faso, a man who had never left his province, never owned a radio, never sat on a chair with a backrest. He had no titles, no medals. But he had hands calloused, cracked, bleeding through every season, and those hands held the weight of a son who would one day lead a nation. When Ibrahim was only 7, he watched his mother die in childbirth. His baby sister, too weak to cry, didn't survive the night. From that day, Moussa stopped speaking more than necessary. He didn't yell. He didn't cry. He simply buried them himself with a broken shovel and a cloth shirt and returned to the fields the next morning. People in the village whispered that something had died in him too, but the boy still followed him every morning, barefoot, eyes wide, mimicking the swing of his father's hoe like a soldier learning how to march. They lived in a clay house with no door, just a curtain made from old military canvas left by a passing convoy. Ibrahim never saw his father rest. But every night, after the child had fallen asleep, Moussa would sit beside the fire and sharpen old tools, not for war, but for the next day's work. When school finally reached their village, Moussa didn't hesitate. He sold his only goat to buy his son a uniform. When Ibrahim protested saying he could stay and help, Moussa said only 5 words, "You're not born for this." That was the longest sentence Ibrahim would hear from his father that year. Years passed. Ibrahim excelled in school but rarely came home. Not because he forgot, but because he couldn't bear to see his father getting smaller, more fragile. The last time they met, Moussa took a folded envelope from his pocket, a yellowing photo of Ibrahim's mother, worn to near transparency, and pressed it into his son's hand without a word. Then he turned, walked back into the dry field, and never looked back. Moussa died alone. No funeral, no obituary, just a neighbor who found him beside the field, resting against the same tree where he used to peel mangoes for Ibrahim when he was small. The son didn't cry. He didn't attend a state funeral. There wasn't one. Instead, years later, when he became president, he visited that tree unannounced, unguarded, and buried something beneath it. A notebook. Inside his first handwritten speech as a soldier. He never told anyone what it said. But when a local journalist once asked him, "Who taught you how to lead?" Ibrahim looked away and whispered, "The man who never said more than he had to." Today, Burkina Faso knows Ibrahim Traoré as the lion who stood when others fled. The man who dismantled coups, who faced foreign powers without blinking. But behind that voice is another, a quiet one. A man who never held a microphone, never stood on a podium, never gave his son anything but a shovel, silence, and strength. And that was enough to raise a president. Before she disappeared into the silence of death, she left behind something no soldier, no scholar, no hero could replace, a presence so deep it never needed words to remain alive. Her name was Fatoumata, a woman of small frame and strong arms, known in the village not for beauty or wealth, but for the way she carried water. Always barefoot, always humming, even when the buckets bruised her shoulders and the dust stung her eyes. She had no formal education, no letters to her name, but she knew every herb in the bush and every fever a child could catch. To the villagers, she was just another wife, another mother, another woman carrying too much. But to young Ibrahim, she was the sun. Not the light that dazzled, but the one that never failed to rise. He would wait for her behind the clay stove, watching her knead dough with one hand and rock his baby sister with the other. He remembered the rhythm of her hands, the warmth of her neck when he clung to her during storms, the low songs she whispered into his hair when the wind outside was too loud. She was the first person who told him, "You are good," without needing a reason. And then, one day, she was gone. Her death was not dramatic. There were no cries of agony, no last words. Just a quiet night, a wrong turn in childbirth, a silence that refused to end. The midwife wept. Musa did not. Ibrahim was 7. He stood by the door, confused why no one asked him to help. That night, he dreamed of her singing, but couldn't remember the melody when he woke. For years, he tried to recall it, humming pieces, tracing the sound, but it always faded just before he could catch it. And so she became a presence without form, a feeling, a heat in the chest whenever he doubted himself. Whenever he faced commanders who underestimated him or politicians who questioned his voice, he would feel it, that quiet nudge, that invisible song that said, "You are enough." He never spoke of her, not publicly, not even to friends. But every year, on the same day, he would disappear from the capital without notice. No convoy, no press, just a long drive to the north, a stop beneath a tamarind tree near the ruins of the old birthing hut, where he would sit for hours in silence. He never brought flowers, only water, and he would pour it on the ground where she once stood, whisper something into the dust, and leave. When asked once off record what he feared the most in this world, Ibrahim Traoré answered without pause, forgetting the sound of her voice. That's why he never allowed his portrait to be hung in schools. Why he never renamed streets after himself. Why he refused to move into the palace, choosing instead a modest home near the army barracks. Because the woman who shaped his strength taught him not with instructions, but example. Not with lectures, but with quiet presence. Today, the people of Burkina Faso speak his name with pride, but he walks still with 2 shadows, one of a father who spoke little but stood tall, and one of a mother who died too soon but never truly left. In his silence, there is her song. In his fire, there is her warmth. And in every battle he fights, visible or not, she is the one still carrying water. The night before the attempted coup, as the city of Ouagadougou held its breath beneath a blanket of unspoken fear, Ibrahim Traoré finally slept. Not from exhaustion, but because he knew the hour had come. There was nothing left to read, no reports left to analyze, no more messages to intercept. The enemy was within. The knives were already sharpened. The betrayal had a name, and that name had once stood beside him in uniform. But the body can only hold so much fire before the soul demands rest. And so, against every instinct, he lay down, alone, in a room with no windows, and closed his eyes. In the dream, there was no gunfire, no uniforms, no intelligence files or maps of routes, just light, and a field, and the sound of water in a metal bowl. He saw his mother first. She was not older than when she died, still young, still gentle, but her eyes were deeper, filled with a knowing he could never explain. She didn't speak at first, just smiled, and kept washing mangoes, as if he had never left, as if the world outside had never happened. Then he saw his father Musa standing a few meters away, sharpening a blade not for violence, but for harvest. The same rhythmic motion, the same silence, but this time he looked up and spoke. "You don't need to win," he said. "You just need to hold the ground long enough for the seed to grow." Ibrahim, even in the dream, felt himself tremble. "They're coming for me," he said. "They think they know me. They think I'm just a face, a flag." His mother turned, dried her hands, and touched his face. "You are not just a face," she whispered. "You are every step we couldn't take. You are everything we had to bury." He wanted to cry, but no tears came. "Am I enough?" he asked. "If I fall tomorrow, will it have meant anything?" Musa walked closer, looked at him not like a soldier, not like a son, but like a man he recognized. "Do you think a tree worries if it will see the fruit?" he said. "We plant, we bleed, we vanish, but if the roots take hold, nothing is lost." The dream did not end with thunder. It ended with silence. And in that silence, Ibrahim awoke. The air was still, the dawn was gray. His phone had 10 missed calls. His aide was knocking. The operation had begun. But his hands were steady. His breath was slow. And as he stood, pulled on his boots, and placed the tattered photo of his mother into the inside pocket of his jacket, he said to himself, not aloud, but with certainty, "I am not afraid, because I carry 2 lives, and they have never left me."